والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده أما بعد فقد قال الله عز وجل في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم مثلهم كمثل الذي استوقد نارا فلما أضاءت ما حوله ذهب الله بنورهم وتركهم في ظلمات لا يبصرون صم بكم عمي فهم لا يرجعون أو كصيب من السماء فيه ظلمات ورعد وبرق يجعلون أصابعهم في آذانهم من الصواعق حذر الموت والله محيط بالكافرين صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الأمي الكريم ونحن على ذلك لمن الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. The example of the hypocrites is like that person who kindled a fire. Thereafter, this fire illuminated everything around him that he may see. ذهب الله بنورهم. Allah then took away their light, this illumination, and left them in darknesses that they may not see. Deaf, mute, blind, never shall they return. Or the example of the hypocrite is like the pouring rain from the sky. It contains great levels of darknesses and thunder and lightning. They place their fingers in their ears, attempting to block out the sound of thunder out of fear of death, whereas Allah is all-encompassing of the disbelievers. This is verse 17, 18 and 19 of Surah Al Baqarah, and it is only complete with verse 20. So inshallah, over today's lesson and next week's lesson, we hope we can get through two examples that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving in these verses of the hypocrites. So these verses, they explain the miserable, pity state of the hypocrites with the extension of two similes. The choice of two examples is meant to divide the hypocrites into two types of people, two kinds of men. On the one hand, there were those in whom disbelief had taken deep roots, so that they had little inclination towards Islam. But they pretended to be Muslims because of worldly motives. The Quran compares them to the man who, having found light, again loses it and is left in darkness, completely confused again, lost. On the other hand, there were those who did recognize the truth of Islam and sometimes wished to be genuine Muslims, and unfortunately the worldly interests would not allow them to become Muslims, genuine ones, and they remained in a perpetual state of hesitation and confusion because they did not know whether they should step forward and become committed to Islam or whether they should remain a step back and remain committed to the disbelievers, because they felt that no, the truth is ahead. But then there were other reasons that were stopping them from completely committing to this. Allah likened to them, to the men caught up in a thunderstorm, who move forward a step or two when there is a flash of lightning in the darkness. So the flash of lightning also is a reason, a motivation for them to take a step forward. But then as soon as this flash goes and the thunder stops, then they stop again where they are. So they don't progress, they stop again. So we're going to go through these two examples. Second one partly, first one inshallah entirely today. So the first one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَثَلُهُمْ, and their example, كَمَثَلْ, is like the example, الَّذِي اسْتَوْقَدَ نَارًا, like that person whom lit a fire. And this fire allowed him that in the darkness that he was in, it showed him a path, it showed him a way. The illumination gave him comfort. Imagine pitch black and then there's light. It gave him comfort. So just before we continue, the hypocrites were those whom, unlike the disbelievers were never given or never came to an understanding of why Islam is the truth, never came to this enlightenment in their minds. So therefore they chose to stay on what they were on. They stayed back. But the munafiqeen were those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened the truth to. But even after Allah opened the truth to them, they chose to remain behind. That's even worse. That's even worse. One is that the child does not realize that if I pass my exams, what will I get in return? I'll get to go to a top school. That top school, inshallah, will provide me a good degree. That good degree, because it's from that specific school, college, university, institution, that will put me in a better position to get a job in a better place. One is that this child doesn't realize what lies ahead, so he doesn't make effort for the exam. And one is the child understands what lies ahead and he refuses to make that effort. So the second one is worse because he understands. So the hypocrites were those that are the second type, that they all understand, they knew the truth, but they refused to go forward into it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the example of this first one, that this is the example of that person whom was in light. So this person is completely, has hardly any inclination towards Islam, even though they know the truth. So this person was in complete darkness. They lit a light, it illuminated their surroundings. This gives the impression of comfort, peace, security, knowledge, knowing what's happening. Thereafter, فَلَمَّا أَضَاءَتْ مَا حَوْلَهُ ذَهَبَ اللَّهُ بِنُورِهِمْ. So when Islam came to them, they gained the light. ذَهَبَ اللَّهُ بِنُورِهِمْ. Allah took away their light. Allah took it away. And Allah took it away because of their personal refusal to accept this religion and their genuine dislike of Islam. وَتَرَكَهُمْ فِي ظُلُمَاتٍ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala left them in darkness. That is the darkness of their doubts, their disbelief and their hypocrisy. Allah kept them in this misguidance and in this dalala because of their lack of inclination towards Islam. لَا يُبْصِرُونَ, so that they may not see. Because of their deliberate rejection of Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took the light completely away from them to that extent. The next ayah states, Summun, Bukmun, Ummiyun, Fahum la yarji'un. To that extent we have taken away this light from them because of their deliberate rejection that they are deaf, they are mute, and they are blind. La yarji'un, they will never return to the light. So we gave them the opportunity to be in light. They deliberately refused this. So we took the light completely away from them. And we left them in darknesses to that extent that not only did we leave them in darkness, we took away their abilities to be able to come back to light. So what did we do? Summun. We left them deaf. So if somebody calls out to them words of guidance, so a person is, let's imagine, is stranded in the desert, and somebody is saying to him that don't head in that direction, there is no water there, there is no salvation there, there is nothing there, come this way, we are here. And he's calling him quite far distance, but this person is deaf. So he can't hear words of salvation because he just cannot hear. The ability of hearing is gone. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ajib way of describing this is that He describes these three conditions of deaf, dumb, mute and blind without even harful waw al-atf. Allah doesn't put and in between this. So Allah doesn't say summun wa bukmun wa umyun fahum la yarji'un. Allah says summun bukmun umyun, to show that they are all three in one. They are deaf at the same time that they are mute, they cannot speak, and umyun, they are blind as well. So if somebody calls out to them, explaining to them the words of guidance, salvation, they can't hear it. If someone waves at them, says, look here, this is the way, they can't see it. And if they fall into this level of desperation that they feel like, okay, you know what, it's time I actually call out for help, I am in serious trouble over here. But that ability is also gone. They can't even call out for this help. They can't even reach out for this help. Allah seals all their avenues of guidance. Why? Because of deliberate rejection of the truth. So just before we move on to the next example, let's just reflect in our lives about deliberate rejection of truth. Someone says to us that, come for Fajr. Now, this isn't rejection of truth. This may be refusal of going ahead with something, but not deliberate rejection. But another level underneath that is refusal to act even though you know the truth. This is rejection completely, where we do not believe. We do not believe. But refusal to act upon the truth. So somebody says, come for Fajr Salah. So, no, I'm going to stay in bed. I'm not coming out. Don't go there. It's a place of sin. I know what I'm doing. Carries on over there. Don't drink alcohol. Don't take drugs. Don't tell me what to do. Carries on what he's doing. Control your eyes. Control your private parts. No, not going to do that. It's my life. So what end should such people have in mind when they refuse to act upon the truth as they know the truth? See, things lead to something. So refusal of acting upon the truth is a pathway, and somewhere on that journey to where the end is, where they deliberately reject the truth. It's on the pathway. It may not be close enough over there, but it's on that line. It's on that path. So a person must fear the beginning because the end may be much worse. So he mustn't even think about treading the path from the beginning because the end is much worse. But shaitan's trick and treachery is this, that he makes us start from the beginning, which is light. And shaitan knows that this person will commit this sin, because for him it is light. And he can't vision where I'm taking him to. So he starts light. So this is the example at the time of the previous prophets, where the pious people, when they would pass away, to venerate them, they would keep their graves close to their homes of the people. They wouldn't bury them normal places, they'd keep them close. Why? Respect. Why? Blessings. That this person's dead, the closer he will be, the more blessings we will have. So, and what will we do? Every morning we will go, and we'll go to this person's grave, and we'll find peace by the graveside of this person. So it started with generation 1 like this. Generation 2, they don't know why the parents were going to this grave, so they continue to go to this grave every morning as well. Generation 3, they thought that, this is an important thing, you have to go to the graves in the mornings because, grandfather used to go, father used to go, you must go, and if you don't go, you're very bad. Generation 4 sees that Generation 3, when they used to go to the graves, they used to make dua, not to the graves, to Allah. They make dua. But these parents, they never explain who they're making dua to, why they're making dua. So Generation 4 thought, when we go to the graves, we have to make dua as well. Who do we make dua to? Not sure exactly who. Generation 5 starts making dua to the actual grave, the person in the grave. Generation 6 starts to say, you know what, we should actually make picture frames of the people that pass away. Greater level, more easy. So we'll put the picture by their head side. With the name, put a picture there as well. Generation 7 says, you know what, we should just carve maybe a face as a monument of this person that's passed away. Generation 8 sees that these people of the past, they stand by these statues, by these monuments, by these idols, and they, same way they do that at the grave, they raise their hands over at these idols. And by generation 9, 10, these are lost, they are idol worshippers. If you were to tell generation 10 that or generation 1, that if you do this at the graveside just for blessings, without knowledge, without understanding, without explanation, then your generation 10 will end up like this. I am sure that the generation 1 would bury the pious with the others in the graveyard, and they would just cut this completely from the roots, that we don't want anyhow this ending up there in generation 10. So generation 1 would be very, very cautious. But shaitan knows that generation 1 won't even batter an eyelid at this concept of this, that refusing to take blessing. Of course, what's wrong with taking blessing? Just bury them, it's a ground, everything's ground. You can make a grave here, you can make a grave there. We'll make a grave in our courtyard and we'll keep them over there. What's so wrong with that? They wouldn't bat an eyelid. We're thinking, what's wrong? So this is how, my dear respected brothers, mothers and sisters listening, is that deliberate rejection of the truth is the end. But on this pathway, there are lots of thorns and lots of traps. And one of them is refusal to act upon the truth, even though you know the truth. This is why it's very dangerous. So look, easy is, we're going to come to the next example. The next example is of those believers who are closer to Islam, but they're munafiqeen, but they were closer to Islam. So Allah says about them, يَجْعَلُونَ أَصَابِعَهُمْ فِي آذَانِهِمْ. They put their fingers into the ears. They put the fingers into the ears. So the easier way is, if I don't hear, I'm not blameworthy because I don't know. That's better than I hear and I don't act. I just don't hear. So the father knocks on the door. Muhammad, wake up for Fajr. Huh? Didn't hear anything. Blocks his ears out under the duvet. What? Huh? Yeah. I didn't hear anything. And he tells himself, I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear anything. No, I didn't. And he convinces himself, I didn't hear anything. But this is better than, okay. And then he still stays in bed, intentionally knowing that I heard my father, he woke me up for Fajr, and I will not pray it. And he stays in bed. I'm not saying any one of the two is correct. Both are incorrect because he didn't praise Fajr. I'm just saying, to hear it and then to intentionally refuse it, reject, to practice upon this, this is worse. This is worse. So this one father was saying to me, and shall we conclude in 2 minutes? This father was saying to me that when I wake up my son for Fajr Salah, then I knock on the door. Let's assume his name is Hashim. Hashim, Fajr time. Hashim says, Hashim, listen, Allah bear witness, I woke up Hashim for Fajr Salah. Now this is between you and him, Allah. Hashim gets the shivers, the fright. What, Dad? Come on, you can't. How can you do that on me? You can't put that line out. You can't. And Hashim has his guilty conscience. No, it can't be between me. That's raw. That is. I can't just say that. Hashim gets up. He doesn't go to the masjid, but he gets up, quickly goes to the toilet, performs wudu, shortcut, prays his quick farad only, goes back to bed. But Hashim cannot stay within the bed once his father leaves his matter to Allah and says that Allah bear witness, I woke him up, the rest is between you and him. He can't, because if any person, this is a teenager we're talking about, who loves his sleep. Yeah? No, teenagers love their sleep. So this is a teenager who cannot stay within his bed because of that iman in his heart, that when you remind him and make him aware of Allah, that this matter between him and Allah, he cannot stay in his bed. So imagine someone else who's older, more aware, more knowledgeable, more conscious of their iman. When they are conscious of their accountability to Allah, then to obey Allah and to restrain from sin will become so much more easier. So much more easier. So this is one technique to wake up the youngsters, is in your tarbiyah of them, declare in front of them verbally about your matters that you have, like the way Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that, هل بلغت or هل لا بلغت, have I not propagated to you? So they said, no, of course Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you have passed on the message, you have. So you say to Allah, هل لا بلغت Allah, have I not said this to him? Have I not passed on the message of your salah to him? As a father, have I not done my responsibility? And he's hearing this. And then leave it to Allah. And because there is iman in his heart, he will wake up. He will wake up. Inshallah, he will wake up. He'll wake up. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us a tawfiq to practice upon what has been said. I was also hoping that 20 minutes go without me going into the second example, because the second example is 2 ayahs worth, and we would have only got through 1 ayah, so it would have been left incomplete. So, whatever happened has happened good. We have managed only the first example today, so that is good. Next week we can inshallah do the second example over 2 ayat, which will give you the complete picture and scenario that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala draws about the second type of munafiqeen, and how beautifully in the next example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains the state of confusion. So the first example we went through today are those people who genuinely, they just don't want to have anything to do with Islam. So the munafiqeen, nothing to do with Islam. They want just show their face for the sake of it. But the second example is those that are in between. Yeah, they feel that we should be there with the Muslims, but at the same time, no, there's reasons why we should be on the other camp with the disbelievers as well. And this state of confusion, how Allah explains it amazingly with this example over the 2 verses that we will do next week. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to practice upon what has been said. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enlighten our hearts with iman, free our hearts from nifaq and from Riyadh, from ostentation, from hypocrisy, from disbelief. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us firm upon our salah, strengthen our aqaid and our beliefs in Himself and in all the important tenets of Islam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us firm in our practice upon Islam as well. آمين يا رب العالمين. سبحان الله بحمده سبحان الله العظيم أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.